What makes Israel Adesanya so good in his UFC career? Israel Adesanya, also known as the Last Stylebender, has captivated the world with his exceptional skills in the UFC octagon. Hailing from Nigeria but raised in New Zealand, Adesanya has emerged as one of the biggest stars in the UFC, drawing in millions of followers. You might have heard that he is a self-proclaimed anime fan, but what really makes him shine is his skill inside that octagon. This will be a very interesting story you don't want to miss out, so buckle up and let's get into Israel Adesanya's outstanding abilities. Right now, Israel Adesanya is the top striker in the UFC. He might even be the best striker in all of MMA. Other great fighters like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Anderson Silva used to be considered the best, but they have gotten older and their skills are not as sharp. Israel Adesanya. When he first got into the UFC, people viewed him as the heir apparent to Anderson Silva, with his slick fighting and counter-strikes gave people a nostalgic feeling of a young Anderson Silva. Adesanya is the current middleweight UFC champion with the record of 24-2 and has reigned as champ for 4 years. With Israel Adesanya long reign and octagon dominance, I felt it was a great time to break down what makes Israel Adesanya so good. His smart stunting. Israel Adesanya utilizes his fight IQ during fights. He is constantly taking information on how his opponent reacts to things. A tool he uses to gain information is stunting. Adesanya constantly flinches at an opponent, forcing them to react. He stunts with legs showing a kick or stunts with his fist showing a punch. He uses those stunts to force opponent to react and then uses their reaction, and he comes up with a counter to their reaction. Let me tell you more about his stunting and show you an example of when he used it. In a fight against Paulo Costa, Adesanya constantly stunted at Costa, forcing Costa to react by throwing punches or backing up. So Israel backed him to the cage, and Israel also found out that whenever Costa backed to the cage, he tends to dip his left side whenever Israel threw a punch. Israel set a trap by forcing Costa to the cage, and he threw a punch, forcing Costa to dip to the left. But that was a setup for Israel leg coming right to left, smacking Costa head really hard. When he faced Robert Whittaker for the undisputed middleweight belt, Adesanya's patented stunting was in full effect. But Israel's stunting pulled out a different reaction from Robert Whittaker. Whittaker's reaction was to lunge into Israel Adesanya's space. Israel saw that and set a trap. When Whittaker lunges in, he's going to step to the side and counter from Whittaker blind spot, which put Whittaker down and ending the fight with a ground and pound punches. Adesanya stunting and using the stunting tool to create counters makes Adesanya so unpredictable. His clever high kick tactics. Israel Adesanya is really good because of how he cleverly incorporates kicks too. He has arsenal both low and high kicks. Adesanya uses his low kicks to keep his opponent a distance away. It is something he uses often, making his opponent comfortable with his low kicks. That's when he surprises opponents with a high kick which comes out of nowhere like a whip. His high kick isn't as often, but comes once in a while, fast and quick. There's another kick that Adesanya uses which is even rarer than his high kick, which is a question mark kick. It is initially a combination of a low kick and a high kick. The question mark kick is when a fighter fakes a low kick and turns it into a high kick. He used it to drop Derek Brunson, his length and quick reflex. Israel Adesanya is really good at fighting because he is tall and fast. He's great at staying far away from his opponents and picking them apart from a distance, and most fighters don't have the length to do the same. The few fighters who are tall enough don't know how to use their height and length too well, like Stefan Struve, who's tall, but he did not use it smartly in his fights even though he knows kickboxing. Adesanya is different. He is really smart about how he uses his height, long arms, and feet. When he is far away, he makes use of leg and head kicks, and a lot of times uses one to set up the other. Another long-range weapon Adesanya uses is his hips. Adesanya is tricky with his hips. He twists his hips, giving the illusion of him throwing a kick. This makes his opponents worried about his kicks. This makes them defensive and unsure of what to do. It forces them to react to whatever Adesanya is doing, and that's not good for the opponent when they are only reacting and limiting them from continuing their game plan. Adesanya controls the fight this way. He decides what happens because his opponents are just reacting. They're not in charge anymore. So, because of his smarts, height, and quick moves, Adesanya is elite fighting at long range. His footwork creativity is real. Adesanya's skill shines through his footwork in MMA. While many fighters are good at various aspects, only a few truly excel at controlling the ring or cage. Being a ring general involves using side-to-side and forward-backward movement, along with turning to avoid an oncoming opponent. On the other hand, cage cutting involves moving in sync with an evading opponent, effectively cornering them. Adesanya's abilities were evident when he faced Paulo Costa. He not only outmaneuvered Costa, a strong cage cutter, but also prevented him from imposing his aggressive style. Adesanya's stance shifts strategically, standing wide but flattening near the fence. He cleverly misdirects opponents by shuffling left and right, making them commit to one angle only to pivot out into an open space. This tactic worked remarkably well against Costa, even as he was pressed to the fence. Adesanya's footwork prowess rivaled that of Stephen Thompson, who was equally adept in his prime. He outstruck top strikers. Israel Adesanya is really good because he has beaten other great strikers. He is even better at this than other fighters who are also really good at it. Many top fighters are awesome at zero certain skills, like wrestling, but they often fight folks who are not as skilled. For example, some people say that Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is known for his wrestling, never fought strong wrestlers like him, except for one guy who is not great at fighting from his back. Adesanya fought Anderson Silva and won by making the judges agree that he did better. This happened in a big event called UFC 234. People also talk about Anderson Silva, a fighter from Brazil who is famous for his striking. Some say he looked great because the people he fought against got scared of his tricky moves. Adesanya is different because he faced really good strikers like Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa, and Alex Pereira. He even fought Anderson Silva himself and did better. These fighters have different styles. Silva is sneaky and waits to hit back. Whittaker mixes boxing and karate. Costa is strong and pressures opponents against the fence. Adesanya beat all of them and is now the best striker in UFC. He's special because he faced many types of strikers and won against them. His comfort with close-range combat or counter-striking. One thing that makes Israel Adesanya really good is that he feels comfortable fighting up close, which is rare because most strikes are either long-range fighters like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, whose style is more karate style that relies on leg kicks, or close-range fighter like Max Holloway, who is heavy on the boxing style. Even though Adesanya is great at long-distance fighting, he is very comfortable in close combat fighting, which was very evident in his fights with Brad Tavares, Robert Whittaker, and Alex Pereira. The weapon that is highlighted the most during Adesanya close combat fight is his ability to counter-strike. Counter-striking is the ability to see an attack coming and have the ability to dodge or block and throw a counter-strike all in a split second. This forces opponents to be overzealous and lunged in like Whittaker, or become overconfident like Alex Pereira, which both led to Adesanya knocking them out. There you have it, folks. In a world where fighters often have one or two strong suits, Israel stands out because he is the whole package. He's got the mental game, the physical prowess, and that touch of creativity that keeps everyone on their toes. That's what makes him so good, and that's why he's earned his place as one of the UFC's biggest stars. What do you think is really amazing about Israel Adesanya's abilities? Let's know your response in the comments section. Thanks for watching.